Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we really try to cut through all the clutter and get to what actually matters.
There's certainly a lot of clutter out there.
Oh, absolutely. Just,
Yeah.
take a second and think about the sheer amount of stuff fighting for your attention every single day.
Messages, brands, ideas.
Exactly. Your phone apps, the ads you see everywhere, the stuff in your kitchen cupboards, the headlines. It's just, well, it's overwhelming, isn't it? A real cacophony.
It really is. Information overload is the norm.
So in this incredibly crowded world, maybe you're launching a product, maybe you're building a business, maybe you're just trying to get an idea out there, or even just, shaping your own personal brand.
Yeah.
There's this one huge question that kind of determines everything, right?
Mm.
How on earth do you actually stand out?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do you make sure your message or your product or your vision, whatever it is, how do you make sure it doesn't just get lost? How does it actually resonate and carve out its own little space, in people's minds?
It's more than just a challenge, really. It feels like a constant battle, doesn't it, for something really scarce, which is people's attention.
Totally.
And if you're not really deliberate about it, if you don't stake your claim somehow, you fade into the background noise. You're lost.
Exactly right. And look, that's our mission today. We're doing a deep dive into a concept that, it gets thrown around a lot as a marketing buzzword, but it's actually much more fundamental. It's this battle for mental real estate. We're talking about positioning.
Positioning, a classic.
We want to explore what it really means to own a specific attribute,
Right.
a single idea, maybe even just one simple word in how your audience perceives you.
Like the classic Volvo example, right? Safety.
Precisely. Volvo equals safety. They nailed that position.
Yeah.
So the sources we're drawing on today are, well, they're fantastic. We've got insights from classic marketing thinkers like Ries and Trout.
Their work is foundational here.
Absolutely. And we're mixing that with strategic business guides, even some pretty fascinating stuff from financial history. The goal is to really uncover the dynamics underneath it all. How do companies establish themselves? Why is marketing, as Ries and Trout famously said, really a battle of perceptions, not products?
Yeah.
And how do things ultimately get known? How do they get chosen in this incredibly crowded world we live in?
And we're going beyond just the surface level, right? It's not just about the advertising you do to a product. It's about what you actually achieve in the minds of your audience, that lasting impression, that mental foothold.
Couldn't have said it better. So get ready. We're going to unpack what positioning really means. We'll look at how some companies have sort of created entirely new market spaces to just get away from the brutal competition.
Blue ocean.
Yeah, the blue oceans. We'll look at the art, because it really is an art, of crafting a message that actually sticks, that owns that one word in people's mind.
And we'll even touch on some high-stakes stuff.
Oh, yeah. We'll delve into revolutionary business strategies, but also some spectacular financial messes where perceptions were, carefully built up and they just completely shattered.
Sounds juicy.
This is really a foundational deep dive. It should genuinely change how you think about branding, advertising, competition. Hopefully giving you that key to standing out in this noisy world.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so given this fierce battle for attention we've just talked about, our sources really hammer home that the very first step, if you want to win, is to actually understand what positioning is. It's definitely more than just marketing speak, isn't it? Let's kick off with our first segment, defining positioning more than just marketing speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's really fascinating, and I think where a lot of confusion comes in, is that positioning is often described as the most discussed and least understood component of high-tech marketing. But it applies everywhere, really.
Least understood. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, I think many people tend to think of it as a verb, as a set of actions. We need to position our product. They think about the advertising campaigns, the pricing, the feature lists, all the things you do.
Or the marketing contortions, as one source puts it.
Exactly, those contortions. But the real power, the core insight, especially from guys like Ries and Trout, is that positioning, first and foremost, is a noun.
A noun, okay, that feels important. It's not an action you take, but a thing you achieve. Elaborate on that. What does it mean for positioning to be an attribute?
It means it's about what sticks, what actually takes root in the prospect's mind. It's that single idea, that specific quality, that mental slot that your audience just automatically, unequivocally connects with you or your offering.
So it's like a mental shortcut people use.
Precisely. Think about it. It's the undisputed answer in their head to a specific need or characteristic. Like we said, Volvo. Boom. Safety. That connection is instant for many people. Volvo worked for decades to own that single powerful word. They don't just sell cars. Fundamentally, they sell the idea of safety. That is their positioning. The noun. It's the established perception living inside the customer's head.
Not just the ads about safety, but the actual ownership of the concept safety.
Exactly. It's not just the marketing activities used to create the association, but the association itself. And if your company or your product doesn't own a distinct, ideally positive, attribute a clear slot in the customer's mind, well, you're basically invisible. You're interchangeable. Just another face in the crowd.
Wow. So it's not about shouting louder. It's about leaving a mark, a specific, singular idea that makes you the default choice in a certain context.
That's it. The real battle isn't necessarily for market share, though that follows. The primary battle is for mental real estate. Mind share precedes market share.
Mental real estate. I like that. It almost sounds like there are only so many slots available in people's minds for each category.
That's a great way to think about it. People simplify. They create ladders in their minds for different categories. Maybe there's room for 2 or 3 brands at the top of the ladder for, say, fast food or running shoes or search engines. If you're not on that ladder, or at least fighting for a rung, you're nowhere.
Okay, so how do you build that ladder? Or maybe how do you create a whole new ladder where you're automatically at the top? This leads to the idea of creating the competitive landscape, right?
Exactly. Our sources talk about creating competition or maybe redefining it as a watershed moment in positioning. It's not just about duking it out within an existing market space. That's often what they call a red ocean.
Red ocean. Sounds bloody.
It is. It signifies intense competition, everyone fighting over the same customers, usually by slashing prices or adding minor features that get copied instantly. Profits get squeezed, everyone gets wounded. It's a race to the bottom sometimes.
So the alternative is?
The alternative, the real strategic power move, is to proactively define or even create the market space you want to own. To find or build your own pond.
So, stepping outside the existing fight.
Precisely. Moving beyond those head-to-head battles and finding or making an uncontested arena. A space where you can genuinely be first. First in that category, first in the mind.
That feels like a massive shift in thinking. Most businesses, when they think competition, they immediately think, how do we beat brand X or brand Y in this category?
Right. They accept the existing category structure as a given.
But you're saying the real power might come from just sidestepping that fight, defining the game on your own terms, or maybe even inventing a whole new game. How do you actually do that? How do you move beyond the red ocean to something genuinely new?
It requires a fundamental shift in your strategic lens. You stop looking only at your current competitors and start looking at, well, non-customers. What needs aren't being met? What assumptions does the entire industry make that could be challenged?
Okay.
You're aiming to establish an attribute, a position in the public mind that is uniquely yours. And often the most powerful way to do that is by inventing a new category where you can be the pioneer, the first.
Why is being first so important? Isn't it better to be better?
That's a key insight from Ries and Trout. Being first is almost always easier than convincing people you're better. Why? Because better is subjective. It's comparative. It requires the customer to make a judgment against an established leader.
Okay, I see.
But first is objective. It's a fact. Being first lets you define the category, set the terms, and occupy that top rung on the mental ladder by default. You become the standard against which others are judged. Getting into the mind first is the key.
Getting into the mind first. That concept, creating new categories, finding uncontested space, it leads us perfectly into our next segment, which I find really fascinating.
Right.
Blue oceans, creating new categories and market domination. That allure of uncontested space, it's powerful, isn't it? Moving from head-to-head competition to blue ocean creation.
Immensely powerful. It's a strategic move that can completely reshape an industry or even create a new one. But it's tough for many companies because they get stuck. They remain, as the source says, wedded to red oceans.
Why? Why stay in the bloody waters if there's clear blue ocean out there?
Inertia, maybe. Comfort zones. Often it's because their focus is locked onto existing customer segments, existing industry boundaries, and crucially, they're fixated on the numbers associated with that existing market. Market share, sales volume, cost reduction within the current game.
They're optimizing within the known battlefield.
Exactly. They're playing the game as it's currently defined, trying to win by inches rather than changing the game itself.
And the core idea of blue ocean strategy, then, is that real strategic planning needs to step back. It should focus on the big picture, not the numbers, at least initially. That feels
Yeah.
counterintuitive for business, right? Ignore the numbers.
Well, not ignore them forever, obviously, but initially, yes. Focusing only on optimizing current numbers keeps you trapped in the red ocean. Focusing on the big picture means asking different questions.
Like what?
Like, who are the non-customers of our industry, and why aren't they buying? What are the alternative industries or services people use to get a similar job done? What are the key factors the industry competes on that we could potentially eliminate or reduce? And what factors could we raise or create that the industry has never offered?
So it's about challenging the status quo, looking beyond the current competitors and customer.
Precisely. It's about pursuing what they call value innovation, not just tech innovation, not just incremental improvements, but finding ways to offer a leap in value, utility, simplicity, experience, cost savings that makes the existing competition less relevant.
Okay, value innovation. Let's unpack that. How did Henry Ford do this? He didn't just compete with other car makers, did he?
No, not really. His vision was much, much bigger. The existing car manufacturers back then were mostly making expensive, handcrafted machines for the wealthy. Luxury items, essentially. Ford wasn't trying to build a slightly better luxury car.
He was going after
Yeah.
everyone else.
Exactly. He aimed to replace the horse and buggy. His competition wasn't just other cars. It was the dominant mode of personal transport for centuries. By creating the Model T simple, durable, affordable, and, crucially, the assembly line to mass produce it efficiently.
He completely changed the game.
He exploded the size of the automobile industry, as the source puts it. He created this huge blue ocean. He wasn't just selling a car. He was selling affordable, reliable, personal mobility to the masses for the first time.
And the numbers reflect that, right? His market share.
Astonishingly so. It went from around 9% in 1908 to a staggering 61% by 1921. Think about that. By 1923, a majority of American households actually owned a Model T. He didn't just gain market share, he fundamentally repositioned personal transport itself in the collective mind. He owned a car for the great multitude, functional, basic transport.
Incredible. A total societal shift driven by positioning. But then the story doesn't end there. General Motors came along, Ford created this massive blue ocean, but GM managed to create another blue ocean within it. How?
Yeah, this is where Alfred Sloan's genius at GM comes in, around 1924. He saw that Ford's strength, that single-minded focus on functional, one-size-fits-all utility, any color as long as it's black, was also becoming a weakness as the market matured.
People wanted more than just basic transport.
Exactly. As people became more prosperous, Sloan recognized they started seeing cars not just as tools, but as extensions of their identity. They desired style, comfort, status, differentiation. So GM counterpositioned Ford brilliantly. Instead of Ford's functional strategy, Sloan introduced a car for every person purpose.
Appealing to different segments, different desires.
Precisely. He tapped into the emotional dimensions of car ownership, targeting the growing American mass class market that wanted more than just utility. It wasn't just about getting from A to B anymore. It was about how you got there and what it said about you.
So how did he structure that within GM with all its different brands? It could have been confusing.
That was the brilliance of Sloan's plan. He gave each GM brand, Chevrolet, Pontiac, Oldsmobile, Buick, Cadillac, a very specific price point and a distinct image or positioning. Chevrolet was the entry level, competing more directly with Ford, but offering, more colors, more style options.
Right.
Buick was for the solid middle-class reliability, comfort. Cadillac was the pinnacle, pure luxury and prestige. Each brand had its own clearly defined territory, its own mental slot. This structure dramatically reduced intra-company competition and product clutter.
No confusion about who was for whom.
None at all. The source says there was no fuzziness or confusion about the difference between a Chevy and a Cadillac. GM didn't just make variations of the Model T. They created distinct blue oceans of desire within the broader auto market by segmenting and positioning for different emotional needs and aspirations. They owned differentiation and choice.
That's fascinating. So creating a blue ocean isn't just about inventing something totally new, like the car itself. It can also be about seeing new ways to segment and position within an established market, based on evolving needs and desires.
Absolutely. And crucially, it's often driven by value innovation, not necessarily pure technology.
Right, you mentioned that earlier. Value innovation, not technology innovation, is what launches commercially compelling new markets. Can you give another example? The Segway, maybe?
The Segway is the perfect cautionary tale. Technologically, it was revolutionary, right? A self-balancing electric personal transporter, heralded as something that would change cities.
I remember the hype. It was huge.
Huge, but
Yeah.
It largely failed to create a compelling new market. Why? Because, as the source bluntly states, success or failure in business is rarely determined by the quality of the technology alone.
So what was missing?
It lacked true value innovation. Did it offer a massive leap in productivity? And not really for most people. Simplicity, maybe, but also awkwardness in many settings. Ease of use, debatable. Convenience, sometimes, but where do you park it? Where can you legally ride it? Fun. For a bit, maybe, but as daily transport. It didn't solve a burning problem for a large group of people in a way that justified its cost limitations.
The value proposition wasn't clear or compelling enough for mainstream adoption.
Exactly. The technology was clever, but it didn't unlock a significant new value curve for most potential users. It didn't find its why in the user's mind. It failed to position itself effectively.
So the tech can be amazing, but if it doesn't translate into a clear, perceived leap in value, solving a real problem, offering major convenience, fun, simplicity, whatever, it just won't get traction. It won't own a space.
Precisely. Look at the successes. Cirque du Soleil, they reinvented the circus. Was it new tech? No. They innovated the value. They eliminated costly animal acts and star performers, focused on artistry, music, narrative, targeting adults willing to pay premium prices for a sophisticated theatrical experience. That was a blue ocean.
Right. Completely different value proposition than a traditional circus.
Or Starbucks. Did they invent coffee? Obviously not. Did they have radically new brewing tech? No. They created a blue ocean around the experience of coffee. The third place, the ambiance, the customization, the ritual. They positioned coffee as an affordable luxury, an experience, not just a caffeine delivery system.
And Dyson, vacuums existed forever.
Right. Dyson didn't invent vacuuming, but
Right.
they created a high-end blue ocean through superior engineering, yes, but also through radical design, the convenience of bagless technology, and a powerful message of innovation and performance. They positioned themselves against boring, functional appliances.
So Cirque, Starbucks, Dyson. They didn't necessarily rely on bleeding-edge tech, but they offered a leap in value, artistic, experiential design performance that created new market space, often at a premium price.
Exactly. They often priced against substitutes and alternatives, not just direct competitors. Cirque priced against theater tickets, not just other circuses. Starbucks priced against restaurant desserts or other small indulgences, not just cheap coffee. They redefined the value equation and carved out their blue oceans by shifting perceptions and owning new attributes in the mind.
Which brings us perfectly to, okay, you found your blue ocean, you know the attribute you want to own. How do you actually get that message across? How do you shape the perception? This leads to our next segment, crafting the message and shaping perception. Where does that start? The sources talk about tapping into mass desire.
Yes, this is absolutely fundamental, especially in advertising and communication. You don't, generally speaking, create desire out of thin air. It's much more effective to identify an existing powerful desire that's already out there in the world. The advice is to choose the mass desire that gives you the most power in all three dimensions.
3 dimensions, what other?
It refers to a desire that is, ideally, 1, widespread, millions of people feel it. 2, intense, it's a strong, deeply felt yearning. And 3, urgent people are actively looking for ways to satisfy it right now.
So find a big, strong, current desire.
Exactly. The goal is to tap a single, overwhelming desire existing today in the hearts and minds of millions of people who are actively seeking to satisfy it at this very moment. You're essentially channeling an existing force, connecting your offering directly to the fulfillment of that powerful pre-existing yearning.
So you're not pushing something onto people, you're aligning with something they already desperately want. Makes sense. And the first place you make that connection is often the headline, right? That's critical.
Absolutely critical. The headline is described as the bridge between your prospect and your product. It's your first best chance to grab their attention and pull them into your message. But how you build that bridge depends entirely on where the prospect is mentally.
What do you mean, where they are mental?
Their level of awareness. Are they aware of your product and the desire it satisfies? Are they only aware of the desire? Or are they only aware of a vague problem? The headline needs to meet them where they are.
Okay, give me an example. Let's say they know the product and the desire.
Okay, maybe they know about, say, a specific brand of headache relief medicine, and they have a headache right now. The headline can start with the product. Get fast headache relief with brand name. It's direct because they already connect the product to the solution for their current desire.
Got it. What if they only know the desire? Like they want to lose weight, but they don't know your specific diet pill yet.
Then the headline needs to start with a desire. Something like, tired of diets that don't work, or want to finally fit into those jeans again. You lead with the feeling, the yearning, and then your message introduces your product as the way to satisfy it.
Okay. And the last one, if they're only aware of a general problem, maybe they feel sluggish, but haven't connected it to, say, poor nutrition.
In that case, the headline needs to start with that general problem and crystallize it into a specific need. Maybe something like, feeling run down and exhausted by 3 p.m. You identify the symptom they recognize, make it concrete, and then you can lead them towards understanding the underlying issue and how your product, maybe a nutritional supplement in this case, offers the solution.
So it's like guiding them mentally, meeting them at their awareness level and walking them across that bridge to your solution. You're positioning the problem first, sometimes.
Exactly. You have to enter the conversation already going on in their head. And beyond the words, visuals are massively important in building that bridge and making the message stick, right? Shaping perception.
Hugely important. The sources really emphasize the power of illustration, especially for believability and memory, which are crucial for establishing a position. The advice is clear. It pays to illustrate the end result of using your product. Show, don't just tell.
And before and after photos seem particularly effective.
Extremely effective. They seem to fascinate readers, probably because they offer such tangible, visual proof of transformation or improvement. They tap into that core human desire for change, for a better outcome. There was a Gallup study mentioned, looked at 70 campaigns, found not a single before and after campaign that did not increase sales. Not one. That's incredibly strong evidence for the power of visually positioning the benefit.
Wow. That's definitive. It's not just aesthetics. It's visually demonstrating the core promise, the position you want to own, transformation, improvement, results.
Precisely. And historically, there was a really interesting shift, wasn't there?
Yeah.
From drawings to photographs and advertising.
A major shift. When photography became more feasible in print, it generally led to a dramatic increase in readership, believability, and memory compared to drawings. A photograph feels more real, more credible. It captures a moment in reality, whereas a drawing is an interpretation.
Any examples of that impact? The classic one cited is the Come to Britain tourism campaign. Originally, they used these beautiful, intricate drawings of landmarks and landscapes. Looked great. But when they switched to using actual photographs of the same scenes, readership apparently tripled. And even more significantly, actual tourism to Britain reportedly tripled as well.
Oh, that's not just readership, that's real-world behavior change.
Exactly. It wasn't just a style change. It fundamentally repositioned Britain in the minds of potential tourists. It went from being an idealized drawing to a tangible, real, inviting destination you could actually picture yourself visiting.
That's powerful. But you hinted earlier, photos aren't always better. There are nuances. Right, there are exceptions. Sometimes, especially with poor quality newspaper printing back in the day, a really well-done line drawing could actually look clearer or more impactful than a muddy, grainy photo.
Okay, technical limitations.
Yeah. And sometimes a specific style works better. The source mentioned Tom McCann's shoes using distinctive scratchboard drawings, which apparently conveyed a kind of rugged, authentic feel better than photos might have for that specific brand positioning.
So it's about choosing the right visual tool to best establish and reinforce the desired perception, the position you want to own. It depends on the context, the medium, the message.
Exactly. It's strategic visual positioning. And this idea of building perception over time, not just with one ad, connects really well to the concept of permission marketing, doesn't it? Building a relationship, earning attention.
Absolutely. Permission marketing is a very different philosophy from traditional interruption marketing. It's about building a more sustainable, customer-centric position over the long haul. The core idea is moving strangers up the permission ladder.
Permission ladder. How does that work?
You start with an initial interaction, maybe offering something valuable in exchange for permission to contact them, like an email address, for a free guide. That's the first rung. Then you deliver consistent value through that channel, earning more trust and attention. Maybe they sign up for a webinar, next rung. Then eventually, having built that relationship, they trust you enough to buy something, or even let you make purchases on their behalf, top rungs.
So it's a gradual process of earning deeper levels of trust and engagement.
Exactly. It acknowledges that attention is a gift, a privilege you have to earn, not something you can just demand through interruption. And the payoff is huge.
How so? What are the benefits? Well, it dramatically increases the measurability and efficiency of your marketing system because you're communicating with people who want to hear from you. Your engagement rates, conversion rates, they all go way up. It multiplies profits and builds real loyalty.
Can you give a simple example?
Sure, think about a food blogger. Rung 1. Offer a free PDF of top 10 weeknight dinners for an email signup. Rung 2. Send out a weekly newsletter with genuinely useful recipes and tips that people actually open and use. Rung 3. Invite them to a free live Q&A session on cooking techniques. Rung 4. Offer a paid, in-depth online course on mastering sourdough bread.
I see. Each step builds value and trust, making the next request feel natural, not intrusive.
Precisely. By the time you offer the paid course, you've positioned yourself as a trusted expert in their minds because you've consistently delivered value. They've given you permission to be that resource for them.
And technology makes this much easier today, I assume.
Oh, massively. Technology enables what the source calls perfect memory. You can track interactions, preferences, purchase history. This allows for incredible segmentation and the ability to customize correspondence on the fly, making messages super relevant.
Tailored content.
Exactly. And you can deliver this personalized content for free via email or other digital channels to a database of people who actually expect and often welcome your messages because they opted in, they gave permission.
So it's just a whole dynamic from annoying interruption to anticipated relevant communication. That feels like a much stronger way to build a lasting position in someone's mind, being seen as a trusted, valuable resource.
Absolutely. You move from being a stranger shouting at them to being a welcome guest in their inbox, building a position of trust and authority over time.
That's a powerful contrast. Okay, so we've talked about defining positioning, creating new spaces, crafting the message. Now let's look at how these dynamics play out in the rough and tumble of the real market. Competitive advantage, disruption. Our next segment, Mark Andreessen's famous line, "Software is eating the world," seems relevant here. How is that changing the game for positioning?
It's massively accelerating the clock speed of everything. The pace of change, innovation, market evolution, it's just getting faster and faster.
Yeah.
Software and the dense networks connecting everything are the drivers. And it's not just tech companies anymore.
Right, you mentioned Tesla earlier. Physical products becoming software platforms.
Exactly. Tesla cars get faster or gain new driving features through software updates. Your car isn't static, it evolves. This integration of bits, software, into atoms, physical products, is happening across industries, blurring traditional lines and forcing constant reevaluation of positioning. What business are you really in when your physical product is defined by software?
A constantly moving target.
And it's not just one wave of tech change. We've got multiple huge waves hitting simultaneously: cloud, AI, AR, VR, maybe even things like supersonic travel or hyperloops down the line. These aren't happening in sequence. They're converging, overlapping, impacting almost every sector. This creates huge opportunities for new positioning, but also massive threats of disruption. Established positions can become obsolete incredibly quickly if companies don't adapt.
In that kind of high-speed environment, especially for companies trying to blitzscale, grow incredibly fast, where does their competitive advantage come from? How do they lock down a position before anyone else can react?
For blitzscaling companies, the advantage often isn't just a better product initially. It comes from growth factors built into the business model, such as network effects. It's often a deliberate strategy. Sacrifice short-term efficiency for sheer speed, aiming to hit critical mass first.
Why is hitting critical mass so crucial?
Because in many digital markets, the first company to achieve critical scale triggers a feedback loop. This loop makes them stronger and stronger, often leading to a winner-take-all or winner-take-most market. It becomes incredibly hard for anyone else to catch up.
Like the Uber example you mentioned.
Exactly. Uber's aggressive city-by-city expansion wasn't just about planting flags. More drivers meant shorter wait times for riders. Shorter waits attracted more riders. More riders attracted more drivers. More drivers meant even better coverage and faster pickups. You see the loop.
Yeah, it feeds itself.
It's a powerful, self-reinforcing cycle. Each new driver and rider adds value to the network for everyone else. This liquidity, this density, becomes Uber's competitive advantage and solidifies its position as the default ride-sharing app in that city's mind. Rivals struggle because they can't replicate that scale and the resulting convenience quickly.
So achieving scale rapidly is a positioning strategy in itself, creating a barrier through network effects. But what about the flip side, the innovator's dilemma? when established players, even those with dominant positions and great products, get disrupted by newcomers. They lose their position not because they did anything obviously wrong.
Right. This is Clayton Christensen's seminal work. It explains how market leaders doing everything right according to conventional wisdom, listening to their best customers, investing in profitable innovations, can still get blindsided.
How does it typically happen?
Often, new entrants start with a disruptive technology that's initially inferior based on the metrics valued by the mainstream market. Maybe it's simpler, cheaper, smaller, but not as powerful or feature-rich. They find a foothold in overlooked or emerging markets, niche applications, less demanding customers.
And the established companies ignore them because those markets are small and low margin.
Exactly. The incumbents are focused on serving their high-end, profitable customers who demand continuous improvements in the existing technology. They literally can't afford, strategically, to divert resources to these small, uncertain, low-margin markets where the disruption is brewing. It doesn't fit their business model or profit formulas.
But the disruptive technology keeps improving.
Faster than the niche market actually needs. These startups moved up market by steadily adopting sustaining improvements in new component technologies. Eventually, the disruptive tech gets good enough to meet the needs of the mainstream market.
And then the mainstream customers switch.
Often, yes. Because by that point, the new technology, maybe because of its smaller size and architectural simplicity, has become cheaper, faster, and more reliable than the older incumbent technology. It offers a better overall value proposition, and the established market embraces it, leaving the incumbents behind.
Like the disk drive example with Seagate.
A classic case. Seagate started strong in desktop PCs, then dominated the higher-margin mini-computer market with their 5.25-inch drives. But they missed the boat on the smaller, simpler 3.5-inch drives, pioneered by companies like Connor and Quantum.
Why? They were focused on their existing big customers.
Presumably. Their mini-computer customers initially didn't need the smaller size, but the 3.5-inch drives rapidly improved and eventually took over the massive desktop PC market, essentially driving Seagate out of the very market they'd started in because they didn't adapt their positioning or technology fast enough to the new value proposition.
Wow. A stark warning about complacency, even for dominant players. You have to keep watching for those shifts in what the market will value, not just what it values now. This feels connected to Seth Godin's idea of the purple cow, doesn't it? Being remarkable.
Very much so. The purple cow is that thing that's truly different, unexpected, remarkable, something that makes you stand out in a field of boring brown cows. It's your unique positioning made manifest.
But the problem is, companies achieve that, and
then they often forget the lesson of the cow. They achieve success, they have their purple cow, and instead of investing the profits and energy into creating the next remarkable thing, the next innovation, they start to just milk their cow.
They get complacent, focus on efficiency, extracting value from the existing success.
Exactly. They optimize the status quo rather than pushing boundaries. And the brutal reality, as the source notes, is that very few markets are stable enough and fast or long-growing enough to allow a public company to thrive for very long without continuous innovation. Your purple cow eventually fades to brown if you don't keep reinventing.
It loses its remarkability. It stops being different.
Right. And Theodore Levitt made a similar point decades ago. There's no such thing as a growth industry. Industries don't inherently grow forever. Growth comes from companies being perceptive enough to spot where future growth may lie and adapting.
So how do companies fall into this trap, this undetected decay?
Levitt identified several reasons. Assuming the market will keep growing automatically. Believing your current product is invincible, that there are no competitive substitutes. Focusing too much on production and cost reduction, losing sight of the customer and the market, basically becoming myopic.
And when that happens, marketing gets neglected.
Precisely. If you think your product sells itself, or that growth is guaranteed by the market, you stop focusing on understanding evolving needs, on innovating your value proposition, on actively maintaining your unique position in the customer's mind. Continuous innovation, not just in product, but in how you connect and provide value, is absolutely vital to staying remarkable, to keeping that purple cow purple.
It really underscores that positioning isn't a one-time setup. It's an ongoing effort of adaptation and innovation. Now, this battle for the mind, for perception, it plays out intensely in product markets. But maybe nowhere is perception more powerful and potentially more dangerous than in finance. Let's shift to the battle for the investor's mind, perceptions, in finance. The Enron story is just a chilling case study in manipulating perception, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely chilling. And incredibly complex. Essentially, Enron's management perpetrated scams using these incredibly complicated off-balance sheet partnerships. Their main purpose was to obfuscate the true financial position of the company,
Hiding debt, basically.
hiding massive amounts of debt and simultaneously artificially inflating earnings. They were master illusionists, creating a perception of dynamic growth, innovation, and rock-solid profitability, positioning themselves as the future of energy trading, when the reality was, well, right underneath.
And that blockbuster deal they did or didn't do. That's a specific example of the audacity, right?
It perfectly illustrates their methods. They announced this huge deal with Blockbuster to provide video on demand sounded revolutionary, but the venture failed to generate any real profit. Instead of booking a loss, which would hurt their carefully crafted image,
What did they do?
they secretly set up a partnership with a Canadian bank. This partnership essentially lent Enron $115 million. But here's the truly fraudulent part. Enron somehow managed to count that $115 million loan as profit from the Blockbuster deal in their financial statements.
They booked debt as income. How is that even possible?
Through incredibly complex and deceptive accounting maneuvers using those special purpose entities, it was a deliberate, fraudulent repositioning of a liability as income, purely to maintain the perception of success and meet Wall Street's expectations.
And people bought it. Analysts, auditors.
Initially, yes. That's the scary part. The perception management worked for a while. Wall Street analysts applauded. Ken Lay, the chairman, was hailed as a mastermind. Their own auditors, Arthur Andersen, famously certified the books as fairly stating Enron's financial condition, despite, in hindsight, glaring red flags.
And Wall Street firms.
They were busy collecting lucrative fees for structuring these complex perception-enhancing deals. It shows how a powerful, skillfully constructed, and deeply fraudulent perception can fool even supposed experts and institutions, especially when there are incentives to believe, at least until the whole house of cards inevitably collapses.
A really dark side of positioning using it for deception. This manipulation isn't always fraud, though. Sometimes it's just mass psychology, like bubbles. The housing bubble in the mid-2000s seems like another case where perception drove reality, then destroyed it.
Absolutely. The housing bubble is a classic example of a positive feedback loop driven almost entirely by perception and psychology. It started with rising demand, partly fueled by low interest rates and easier lending. This pushed prices up.
Which made people think prices would keep going up.
Exactly. The perception became, housing prices only go up. This encouraged even more mortgage lending, often with very lax standards, because the rising home value seemed to guarantee the loan. People felt wealthier on paper, borrowed against their home equity.
Creating more demand, pushing prices even higher.
Precisely. Higher prices justified more lending, leading to further price increases and increased leverage throughout the system. The perception of ever-increasing value fueled a speculative frenzy.
Until the music stopped.
And then the feedback loop violently reversed. Prices started to decline, even slightly. Suddenly, mortgages were underwater, people owed more than their homes were worth, defaults skyrocketed, loans went sour, banks faced massive losses, consumers, feeling poorer and scared, drastically cut spending.
Leading to the recession.
A severe recession, exacerbated by the deleveraging process as financial institutions tried to shore up their balance sheets, tightening credit across the board. It all stemmed from the shattering of that core perception that prices would rise forever.
It really highlights what Keynes talked about, doesn't it? The mass psychology of a large number of ignorant individuals driving market valuations.
Keynes had incredible insights into this. He argued that markets can be driven by these waves of optimism and pessimism, causing conventional valuation to change violently based on shifting sentiment, not necessarily fundamental changes.
And even the professionals get caught up in guessing the psychology.
He suggested many professionals aren't focused on true long-term value. They're mainly concerned with foreseeing changes in the conventional basis of valuation a short time ahead of the general public. It becomes a game of anticipating what others will think, trying to position yourself slightly ahead of the herd's perception. It's like judging a beauty contest, not based on who you think is prettiest, but who you think others will judge as prettiest.
A second-level guessing game based entirely on anticipated perception. Wow. This makes the idea of contrarian thinking even more interesting, going against that herd perception, like during the 1987 stock market crash.
That was a fascinating moment. On Black Monday, the stock market absolutely plummeted. Panic everywhere. But interestingly, The bond market shot through the roof.
Why? What was the thinking there?
It was a contrarian bet based on a logical chain of reasoning against the stock market panic. The thinking went, lower stock prices mean less wealth. Less wealth leads to less consumption. Less consumption slows the economy. A slower economy means lower inflation. Lower inflation means lower interest rates. And lower interest rates mean higher bond prices.
So while everyone was panicking about stocks, some were calmly buying bonds based on the implications of that panic.
Exactly. That's the core principle of contrarian investing highlighted in the sources. When all investors were doing the same thing, he would actively seek to do the opposite. It's about positioning yourself against the prevailing, often emotionally charged market sentiment.
But that takes guts.
Right.
It feels safer to be wrong with a crowd than potentially right but alone.
Absolutely. There's a deep psychological insight here. Investors do not fear losing money as much as they fear solitude, by which I mean taking risks that others avoid. It's uncomfortable to stand apart. People need excuses. They need company. They're happy to stand on the edge of a precipice as long as they are joined by a few thousand others.
So true contrarianism requires not just analysis, but the psychological fortitude to trust your judgment even when the entire market seems to be screaming the opposite, positioning yourself against the mental tide.
It's a powerful form of independent thinking, resisting the pull of mass psychology and prevailing perception.
Fascinating. The battle for the mind clearly extends beyond customers and investors, right into our own decision-making. Okay, let's bring this towards home base. How does all this external positioning connect back inside an organization? Our final content segment, internal positioning and strategic adaptability. How important is internal alignment for making external positioning stick?
It's absolutely critical. You can have the best external positioning strategy in the world, but if your own team isn't aligned, if your internal culture doesn't support it, it's going to fall flat or feel inauthentic. The external message needs to be rooted in internal reality.
So how do you achieve that alignment? The sources mentioned blue ocean leadership.
Yeah, it applies the same blue ocean thinking internally to leadership activities. It uses a tool called the Leadership Canvas to help leaders analyze their own activities and those of their managers. They ask, what leadership acts and activities should we eliminate because they offer little value or drain time? What should we reduce? What should we raise the focus on? And what should we create that isn't being done now?
And the goal is engagement.
The ultimate goal is to convert disengaged employees into engaged ones by focusing leadership time and energy on high-impact activities and removing low-value ones. Engaged employees understand the strategy, feel valued, and are more likely to deliver on the brand promise consistently.
Makes sense. What about middle managers specifically? What's their role in this internal positioning?
They're crucial. The suggestion is they need to shift towards more coaching, less control. This means, for instance, spending less time demanding detailed progress reports or enforcing bureaucratic compliance, and more time empowering their teams, removing obstacles, and connecting their work to the bigger picture.
Less managing tasks, more developing people and aligning them with the strategy.
Exactly. The idea is to distribute these agreed-upon to-be profiles, clear expectations for leadership behaviors at all levels, and constantly reinforce buy-in across the organization. When leaders model the right behaviors and employees understand how their work contributes to the overall strategic position,
It creates a unified front.
it creates powerful internal alignment. That internal coherence then radiates outward, making the external positioning feel much more authentic, believable, and sustainable.
That link between internal culture and external brand perception feels really strong. And underpinning all of this, both internally and externally, seems to be the importance of a clear why.
The why is everything. It's the foundational purpose, the core belief that drives the organization. It's the ultimate internal and external positioning statement. Think about Microsoft in its early days.
Their why was pretty clear, wasn't it?
Crystal clear. A PC on every desk and in every home. That was a powerful, motivating why that drove everything they did. It reshaped society. But the sources suggest that later on, their why went fuzzy. As they expanded into so many different areas, that single unifying purpose perhaps became less clear, which arguably made their positioning feel more diluted for a time.
And this relates to the difference between leadership and management.
Yes, it's a crucial distinction. Leadership, as one source puts it, is primarily a high-powered right-brain activity. It's more of an art. It's based on a philosophy. Leadership is about defining the why, setting the vision, inspiring people. It's about ensuring you're in the right jungle.
And management.
Management is the left-brain aspect, the execution, the how, processes, systems, efficiency, cutting through the jungle effectively.
But you need both.
Absolutely. But leadership comes first. If the leaders aren't sure they're in the right jungle, if the why is unclear or misguided, then even the most effective management makes little difference. You can be incredibly efficient at marching deeper into the wrong territory. A strong, sustainable position, both inside and out, always starts with a clear, compelling answer to the question, why do we exist? What unique value do we bring? That's the anchor.
What a deep dive this has been. It's so clear now that positioning isn't just some superficial marketing thing. It's multifaceted. It's that core attribute you fight to own in people's minds, that single word, that instant association.
That mental shortcut.
Yeah. And it's a strategic choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
Deciding whether to fight in the bloody red ocean or to try and create your own blue ocean, maybe by being first or by redefining value.
Making the competition irrelevant, at least for a while.
It's a craft. Crafting the message, tapping into desire, using visuals for belief, building trust through permission.
Getting that message to actually stick.
And it's this constant battle, too, against disruption from new tech, against complacency, even against deliberate manipulation of perception, like we saw in finance. It really isn't just about what you sell. It's the story you tell, the perception you build, the unique space you manage to claim and hold in that crowded mental landscape.
And as we've seen, that mental space is incredibly valuable, fiercely contested, and constantly shifting. From Ford and GM literally reshaping society through their positioning, to Enron exploiting trust through deceptive positioning, the power of perception, whether it's earned or manufactured, is just undeniable. It shakes our reality.
Okay, so here's a final, maybe slightly unsettling thought for you, our listener, to consider. We live in an age increasingly defined by what Shoshana Zuboff calls surveillance capitalism, where huge amounts of our data are gathered, analyzed, used to predict, and yes, even modify our behavior, often for profit. Private power aiming to seize behavior for profit.
The attention economy and more.
Right. So in that world where algorithms are constantly learning about us, shaping what we see, subtly trying to position ideas, products, even political viewpoints in our minds, how much control do we really have over our own mental positioning? How much are we being positioned without even realizing it?
That's a heavy question.
It is. How do we make sure we're not numb to this incursion, as one source puts it? How do we avoid forgetting who we were before they owned us if we're not actively, consciously managing what we allow to take root in our own minds? What is doing real deep work on our attention, practicing empathic listening, not just to react, but to truly understand? What does that mean in this very personal internal battle for the mind against forces trying to define us for their own purposes?
It really calls for a level of conscious awareness, doesn't it? A deliberate engagement with the constant stream of information and influence trying to shape our perceptions every single moment. It's about reclaiming some agency over our own mental landscape.
A deep dive into ourselves, perhaps. Definitely something to think about. Until next time, keep thinking deeply about what you allow to position itself in your mind.